On everybody, my name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and today is the 8th or 9th, the 9th of August 2018, and it's been a lot going on with movies and entertainment. First things first, the Red Dead Redemption 2 trailer dropped today, or the first real kind of gameplay trailer dropped today. While that's not intrinsically linked to this kind of channel, I just want to say, hell yeah, October 26th needs to get its ass here so I can watch it and I can enjoy it and I can dive into it, because to me that is such a cinematic series that it would almost be worth going through and kind of analyzing it like that, right? Well, we've got that. But first things first today, I want to talk a bit about this new news coming out of Sony and Venom, because this is where Sony is getting ready to, I believe, screw themselves with the direction that they're going. Right now, what we know about Venom is that it's kind of hit or miss in some respects in regards to how people are viewing it right now. At least the way I'm viewing it right now. The trailers haven't wowed me. But one of the things I've been looking forward to is the fact that it's going to end up being a bloody good romp. I'm hoping for hardcore R-rated violence. I'm hoping for decapitations and Venom to be the lethal protector that eats people. And if it's going to be a non-Spider-Man based story, or Peter Parker won't be in it or anything like that, at least the Sony could give us what we want. We want R-rated. It's worked for Deadpool. It's worked for Logan, and it should work for this. But apparently they're not going to do that. Because apparently Venom here is going to be rated PG-13. It's unlikely to be rated R, according to Heroic Hollywood, saying here that a new report revealed that Sony's Venom movie starring Tom Hardy is unlikely to be rated R. Despite the film's latest trailers emphasizing on horror elements and showing Venom as he's about to bite a person's head off, Variety reports that Sony's brain trust wants the project to avoid a rating that's higher than PG-13, as Variety writes. The feeling that will give the studio greater leeway for future installments that will feature Spider-Man, something Venom does not do. Any Spider-Man movie will carry a PG-13 rating because the wall crawler is more family friendly, and if Venom is too dark and gory, it might preclude the other film matchups, not just with Peter Parker's alter ego, but with other members of the extended Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, that's an interesting line there, the extended Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is that what we're calling it now? Is that where we are? Is that what we're going to be discussing as how to refer to what Sony's doing? And trust me, later on in this episode, we will definitely touch upon that a little bit more. But that being said, this movie needs to be rated R. Like, it needs to be rated R. There is no other way to describe it. Sony's brain trust, as we've learned through multiple reasons, are quite frankly fucking retarded. And I'm sorry if that offends you, but that is what they are. You want to put a helmet on them and make sure that they go on the short bus. This is something that fans want, and fans are going to react in the way of going like a PG-13 Venom movie. It'd be like a PG-13 Punisher film, right? You don't want to do that. Now, the way that the MPAA operates in regards to PG-13, in regards to violence, I should say, so you can say fuck once, right? You can say it, but it can't be in a sexual way. So that's fine, I guess. But violence is generally okay. Lots of guns and lots of explosions is okay. But blood is one of those elements that's going to end up being kind of looked down upon. It's going to be frowned upon by the MPAA. And if it's a movie where Venom is all like, I'm going to eat your arms and your legs and leave you rolling down the street like a turd in the wind, obviously people are going to want to see something like that as part of the dark humor that's meant to accompany this particular type of thing. Now, I understand, at the same time, I want to be fair. I understand that Sony wants this to be a crossover event. They want to make their extended Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, that's just such a weird thing to say. But they want that to be where things are going. They want that to be what's going to happen next, because they know that's where the money-making ideals are, to have their own extended universe, their own crossover characters, and they don't want to fuck it up. And I get that. But you're a business, aren't you, Sony? You like money, don't you, Sony? The Venom trailer has been viewed 64 million times plus at this point. We don't quite know who or why or how or when, but they still are. And people out there are going to go into this expecting to get an R-rated film. Now, if you want to sit there and play the coy, well, we're going to release a theatrical cut that's PG-13, but we're going to then release the unrated version on home video, then you'll see sales on home video. people aren't going to rush out to see something they can get a better version of 6 months down the road. It's one of the reasons why I think Batman v Superman failed as a whole, was because the extended cut was far greater than the theatrical, and the extended cut is one of the things that hurt DCEU, or no, sorry, the theatrical cut is what hurt the DCEU going forward. Had the extended cut been what fans saw first, then I think it would have been better well received, and people would have been more forgiving to maybe Suicide Squad and even Justice League to some extent. This can have long-lasting repercussions for your brand, and this is all Amy Pascal. So get rid of her, man. Just get rid of her. Oh, dear God. But okay, let's talk a little bit more about James Gunn here, because he keeps popping up and everything. This is the quintessential story of 2018. We're going to look back on this 10 years ago, and we're all going to be like, that was the story of Hollywood in 2018. It had nothing to do with the Me Too stuff, which dominated the latter bits of 2017. This is all about James Gunn and all about what's going on to him. And it's been this roller coaster of emotions. It's been this roller coaster situation that many people out there are still going, what's going on? I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to say. Right? We don't know. We don't know. It came out last week that they might be looking to rehire James Gunn, right? And then the next day, no, they're totally not going to do it. Then Batista throws down a little bit of shade. Then they say, well, the reports come out saying, well, yeah, I guess we are going to be working on his script. So we're going to use his script, which I think is a good middle ground. And then you're hearing that, Warner Brothers wants to scoop up James Gunn because he is the hottest director in Hollywood right now, hands down, bar none. And then we get this thing here that says possible reprieve on James Gunn and Guardians as Marvel powwows with Disney, saying here that might be a glimmer of hope for a change of heart and the quick banishment of Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn from the Magic Kingdom. Nobody is talking about it, but sources say that back-channel conversations are taking place between Marvel Studios and Disney. Sources said that the Marvel contingent is trying to persuade Disney to explore a compromise that might bring Gunn back into the fold for Guardians 3. Something that clearly would be best for the franchise. There's no clash or strong arming here. I'm told it's a discussion that comes in the wake of the whole class declaring their loyalty to Gunn, whose abrupt exit has put a thriving film franchise in a rocky place. One would have to label this 11th hour approach to be a long shot, but the community is talking about it. Now, the thing with that you have to consider here ultimately is that this is kind of a no-win situation for Disney, and I can admit that. I can acknowledge that. I can put that out there into the ether. But I think this is a Kevin Feige move. If I'm being honest with myself and I'm being honest with you, this straight up is a Kevin Feige move. This is Feige rolling on in and flexing whatever muscle he's got against Horn and Iger. Now, the thing is, Feige's done this before. Not specifically to this extent, but if you recall, back in 2014, we learned about there being, Spider-Man going into Civil War, and we learned about all that stuff, right? And they were still developing Captain America Civil War. Well, Iron Man was meant to be a big part of that, and Kevin Feige kept going back and forth with Ike Perlmutter, who at the time was the kind of go-to guy for Marvel Studios. He was, the financing guy, right? And this is what Feige threatened to quit over. He wanted Iron Man in the movie. Iron Man was pivotal to Civil War. Perlmutter didn't want to pay out the $40 million. And as a result of that, he went to Iger. He threatened to quit, as the story goes. And so then basically Iger said, okay, you now report to me, bypassing, or at that point, effectively breaking the Marvel Cinematic Universe into Marvel Studios and Marvel Television. But that was Feige flexing his muscles. And now what we're sitting at is a situation in which the Oscars, under pressure of Disney and ABC, have now opened up a popular film category, because we all know it's going to Black Panther. So just give it to Black Panther and be done with it. But this is all coming out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which 20 films in has grossed 18 billion. Somewhere in there, 16, 18 billion, somewhere in there, worldwide, just theatrically over the course of the 10 years. And so Feige is the most powerful producer in Hollywood, even if he is one of the most reserved, 100%. He's flexed his muscles before. He will flex his muscles here now. And I think he's the one pushing in order to get his hands back on James Gunn, because he understands what's at stake. And I talked about this yesterday, and I don't think a lot of people kind of got what I was trying to say. And I did reiterate it a bit on Twitter, but again, was met with this kind of pushback where I'm like, look, the situation involving the fandom, the fan base of Marvel Cinematic Universe and James Gunn is that Guardians are kind of like, they're the heart and soul of the MCU at this point. They are the family, right? They are the family that people like to see. the dysfunctional, scrappy group of underdogs that people relate to. Gunn is a large part of that. What was going to come down the road in the future, what Kevin Feige was banking on, essentially, was Gunn and his vision for where to take it into the cosmos. So you've got that. But there's also that emotional bedrock that has now been kind of fractured. This has put a crack in that. And fans are talking about this, despite what some people on Twitter are saying. People are still talking about this weeks and weeks and weeks later. And if you think for a fucking minute that this will not have a negative impact on anything going forward with Marvel, I think you're sorely mistaken on this one. All right, we saw this with The Last Jedi, and we saw this with Solo. Argue the weekend, argue the time of year, argue the release, argue whatever you want. A Star Wars movie should have never failed. Period. The fandom menace, if that's what you want to call it, clearly had an impact. And I say this because I would ask people I know who aren't involved in YouTube, who aren't involved in this world. I'm like, what do you think about Solo? What do you know about Solo? And they come back and they say, I don't know anything. I just hear it sucks. I hear bad things. That's what they're hearing because people are talking about it, right? So don't underestimate that, period. You can never underestimate that. And at the same time, this is where we find ourselves with James Gunn. So hopefully, Feige's working this magic. He hasn't said a word about this publicly. James Gunn hasn't said a word in public in 3 weeks now. So I think something's happening. I think they're going to bring him back in. I'm not going to hold my breath, but if it's going the way that I think it's going, then I'm definitely happy. But let's jump over here to something that could even be a bigger dumpster fire. And that is going to be Sony's extended Marvel universe. Yeah, their extended Marvel universe. This is what I talked about before, right? So what we've got here is Silver Sable and Black Cat, which are, well, at this point, no longer one movie. It says here, Silver and Black, halted at Sony, will be split into 2 separate films, which, look, ultimately makes sense because we know that they had announced Venom and Silver and Black around the same time. Venom clearly comes out in 2 months, and Silver and Black has been no movement on it. So this is where we go into more about what's going on with that particular EMCMU. Oh, Jesus, sounds, you cannot even break that down. The EMC, really? Just throw an equal in there. Just Einstein it. Sony, you suck. All right. So it says here that Sony's Marvel title, Silver and Black, isn't moving forward, but it will be split up into 2 separate movies. The original movie was going to revolve around Silver Sable, the boss of a war criminal bounty org, and the burglar Black Cat. The first title will likely be Black Cat. Look, that makes sense because everyone wants to see that relationship between her and Peter Parker, especially a love triangle with Mary Jane thrown in. It's going to be so good. So excited. Anyway, it's also expected that Gina Price Blythewood, the writer and director of Silver and Black, will depart but still produce the separate films. If she leaves, the studio will reportedly hire another female director. Sony has access to over 900 Marvel characters, and its intent to grow canons and franchises. Other Sony Marvel properties in the mix are the Daniel Espinosa helming Morbius, with Jared Leto starring as the main vampire. Plus, you've also got projects like Silk, Jackpot, and Nightwatch, with the studio looking to hire screenwriters for those titles. The expansion of the Spider-Man universe outside of Homecoming and without Disney/Marvel's Kevin Feige hinges on the opening of bad web-slinger Venom during the first weekend of October. That pick, which just underwent reshoots, is expected to maintain a hard PG-13 rating. And quite frankly, no one gives a crap about that, to be honest with you. No one gives a crap about just don't make it PG-13. I'm just going to reiterate that point. Don't make it PG-13. Stupidest move you can do, but again, it's Amy Pascal at this point, so it's just where things are. Okay, so jumping over here into again another dumpster fire situation. I feel like with comic book stuff right now, there's a mad scramble to get it right, and as a result, people kind of overshoot the mark quite a bit. And yeah, I'm talking about I'm talking about Dark Phoenix, because we heard rumors a couple months ago that the movie was terrible, that it was bad, and the reports today are not any better. So according to Heroic Hollywood here, the new details on X-Men Dark Phoenix reshoot surface. Says here that okay, so per the folks at Collider, the previous report regarding the lengthy 3-month reshoot for X-Men Dark Phoenix have received new information. Rather, the shoot is expected to merely take 2.5 weeks in Montreal for additional photography, the standard time for major blockbuster reshoots. Not a rehaul of the entire film. What's involved with the additional photography is some of the film's third act, a few new scenes, and additions to existing scenes. So, okay. maybe not as much of a dumpster fire as I thought. But the original story, because they literally just updated that as I refreshed the page. So that was all new to me. So the original story was they were going to go in for a 3-month reshoot. The movie itself took 3.5 months to film, which would argue that it's going to be one of those complete overhauls, right? And a lot of people were looking at this like, is this a new Solo? Is this a new Solo situation? Are we going to see this like total revamping of the film? I guess not, but it's only going to be 2.5 weeks in Montreal. At least that's what Fox is saying right now. And I guess this is to make the February release date, which does make a lot of sense. If they were doing a 3.5 month or 3-month reshoot, there's no way they would make the February release. There's no way they would be able to get that done in time. So it does make sense that they are just coming in for this particular couple weeks. Now, what this tells me is that here's the deal. I don't know. They won't. Here's the thing. We know that when it comes to the Disney Fox buyout, we know that they want it done in the first half of 2019, which means probably by the end of maybe by the end of the first quarter or beginning of the second quarter. So either March or April is what I'm thinking about. And by that, and right now we're hearing reports that Disney can start planning for what to do with these properties. They can start planning what to do with these next movies, what to do with all this stuff. That's what I'm hearing. And if that's the case, then I feel like these reshoots, these additional scenes are going to tease that. Now, this movie takes place in the 90s, right? This takes place in the 90s, whereas the last one took place in the 80s. And I think early 90s. Now, look, this is pure speculation, but Captain Marvel takes place, I think, in 1993. Again, early 90s. Is it possible that Captain Marvel is going to find some kind of alternate dimension or something that's going to tie into this? Because that ultimately makes sense. If the deal is going to come through by just a couple months after the release of this movie, it does make sense to already tie it into place. It does make sense to push that stuff together. I don't know if they're going to do it. I don't know if it's going to be a thing. But to me, that's just simply what it feels like. And I feel that that would be the best course of action for trying to then maybe retcon things or to go back in and tell us where things are going to go. Because while we think, and look, I'm probably wrong and I'll admit that, but like, I know they're going to want to reboot everything. I know they're going to want to redo everything with X-Men to bring it into the new age, but who knows what they're going to do. I just feel it's happening so close together that there can't not be any other type of connection, right? I just feel like that's the case, but I don't know. I'm probably wrong here. So let's jump over and talk a bit more about the Disney streaming service, because this is a big thing. And everyone's talking about this, right? We found out that Jon Favreau's Star Wars series, which starts shooting here pretty soon, the first season, 10 episodes, is reportedly going to cost $100 million, meaning each episode is $10 million. To put that into perspective, Game of Thrones, each episode is about $6 million. So clearly they're putting in a lot of money into this. And that would start then asking the question, what exactly is it going to cost for Disney Direct? What is this going to cost them? What are the general consumer? Because we've heard reports that Disney needs about 32 million subscribers in order for this thing to be even remotely profitable. And after the $71.3 billion buyout of Fox, you can kind of understand why. But according to Digital Spy here, it says that Disney's new streaming service will probably be cheaper than Netflix. The more we hear about Disney's new streaming service, the more we like what we're hearing, and the latest update is no different. Bob Iger has been recently discussing the Disney rollout strategy for the new service, and he suggested that the streaming platform could very well be cheaper than the plans currently offered by Netflix. The only catch is, though, you're getting less content, which that does make sense. He says here, our first priority is going to be reaching our core Disney fan. We want to walk before we run when it comes to the volume of content. We have to put enough on to make sense for the price to value relationship perspective. So basically, in regards to like kind of non-industry speak there, they want to make sure they have enough content to warrant the price. I know I'm not alone in thinking this or saying this out loud, but this is fucking Disney. Disney has got the content to warrant the price. You could probably open up a streaming service and charge like $7-8 a month and just put your animated film classics and Pixar films on there. And people would be like, yeah, oh, there's 50 years worth of content on there. Yeah, I'm okay. They'd be fine with that. You could just put up your movies on there. And it would, it would be fine. right? Marvel, well, not so much Star Wars. Episodes 1 through 6 at least. They got all that shit. They could put it up there and they could make it work. But I understand they want to kind of roll this out in a smaller fashion. DC Universe is kind of doing something similar, right? So they charge $75 for 15 months, which breaks down to about $4.93 a month. And you do get a lot of content, but they're going to start off with a bit of it and then slowly roll more of it out as it goes along, while still also focusing on their original shows, which is cool because I already pre-ordered it and I'm excited to get it here in a couple weeks. So I'm definitely going to be reviewing those on the channel. So that's kind of where it's at. And I think that's a good play. They're not trying to run before they walk. They're definitely trying to make sure that they have enough content there and enough of a stable user base to keep people coming back for more. But I think Iger knows every parent out there is going to sit there and buy this for their kids. It's going to happen. It's like, oh, you want to watch a Pixar movie? Well, I don't own this one on Blu-ray, but we can go watch it on Disney streaming. That's going to be where it's at. You know what I mean? Like they've already been heavily pushing Movies Anywhere in the digital side of things for a while. I think it's going to be perfectly fine. But let's jump into the last story here, because this happened a couple days ago and I just did not talk about it. But Ruby Rose has been cast as Batwoman in the Arrowverse. And a lot of people out there are super excited about this. I personally, I don't know. I know people like her in regards to Orange is the New Black. But I also have only really seen her in a couple movies, and she had like very little dialogue. And even in John Wick Chapter 2, which I feel was probably her best acting role, she never spoke. So Batwoman, I guess. So it says here that the CW casts Ruby Rose as Batwoman. Ruby Rose will be the CW's Batwoman in a piece of pitch-perfect casting. The gender-fluid and openly gay actress will be playing a lesbian Cape Crusader in the CW's ever-expanding Arrowverse. Rose is set to first don Kate Kane's mask and fiery red wig in this fall's Arrowverse crossover event before headlining her own solo series currently in development. The CW announced Ruby Rose casting as Batwoman at the TCA's Monday night. And then they also confirmed her casting when we can first expect the model turned actress to first don the cape and cowl, which will be in December 2018. If her introduction goes over well, Rose could next headline her own series as the Gotham Vigilante. The CW, which is currently developing a Batwoman solo series, is also executive producing alongside Jeff Johns and Greg Berlanti. Here's the official logline. It says here, armed with passion for social justice and a flair for speaking her mind, Kate Kane soars into the streets of Gotham as Batwoman, an out lesbian and highly trained street fighter primed to snuff out the failing city's criminal resurgence. But don't call her a hero yet. In a city desperate for a savior, Kate must overcome her own demons before embracing the call to be Gotham's symbol of hope. And yeah, I mean, like, that's interesting, but at the same time, I'd rather just have Batman. And like, okay, listen. From a representation perspective, I get it. From a representation perspective, I totally understand it. I get what they're going for here. I 100% get it. From just like a general kind of like, are there too many Arrowverse shows and it's becoming hard to keep up? Because I'm behind at this point. Yeah, they have no intention of canceling anything, but they're just going to keep adding to it, which I guess makes sense that they're popular. Greg Berlanti, who's openly gay, wanted this to be, I guess, a game pride. It sounds so horrible to say it like that. It's like, how do you say that without it coming across as like condescending? It's not condescending. I'm very happy for the guy. But he wanted this to be a thing. He wanted an out lesbian actress. He wanted this to be a kind of a very, 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 staple or a very solid beacon of representation. And I understand that. I just don't know how she is as an actress. What I've seen hasn't been that great. Again, John Wick, she emoted well with her face. But if she's behind a cape and cowl, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure what to expect off this one. I'll definitely give it a watch at the crossover event this fall or this winter. I'll see how it is, and we'll see if anyone likes it. But there is going to be probably a lot of interesting hot takes surrounding this particular title, mostly because people out there are going to be probably questioning it, and any kind of pushback they might get, critical or otherwise, is going to be met with a massive pushback from the movie blogging community that are going to start labeling every detractor as sexist, bigoted, and hate homophobic, which is not going to be the case for every single person, but that is a battle that is going to be oncoming, and that should, again, be fun to watch, I guess. I don't know. To me, none of that shit's fun, but it is where we are right now, and that is unfortunate. But That being said, guys, that wraps up today's episode of 3 Buck Theater. If you guys haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Leave your comment below about whatever you want. We'll have a discussion there. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.